Hello YouTube, this is Bruno. I've released a fast resin farm last week and built it on a hemisphere server here. Of course it does nothing in the day, it works only at night. But I've made a few upgrades, so this new farm has double the rates of the old farm. It has pretty much the same size, it's almost as simple as the previous version. And if you've already built the old version, you'll be able to upgrade it to the new version rather easily, because the core of the farm hasn't changed. Here we have the 180 creaking hearts and we shift the logs that they are connected to. This time, there we go. This time we'll also shift the logs on top and collect the resins on top. So let's give it a go. Farm is ramping up. So here are the new rates measured in a session of over 20 hours with normal daylight cycle. We get 13,000 resin blocks or about 115,000 resin clumps per hour, and this is measured day and night, of course. Or at night we get a whopping 29,000 blocks or 250,000 clumps per hour. Of course, we autocraft the resins to blocks, and we also had to upgrade our collection system. We now go into 2 double-speed shulker box loaders, because at night we produce the blocks faster than a 3 times shulker box loader could handle. And we don't want the farm to back up and lose drops if we have an extended thunderstorm, for example. Now, you might think that the previous farm at half those rates was fast enough, and it certainly is if you play single player. However, if you play on a server, then maybe you don't have a whole lot of thunderstorm at night. You might have to beg the other players to not sleep while you're running the farm. So it's absolutely a good idea to make it as fast as possible. And here we are. So let's go to creative. So for those of you who have seen the previous version of the farm, there are 4 improvements and 3 coming directly from your comments, because you guys are fantastic. The first one was super easy to implement. And it was the question if we can use other blocks for the spawning platforms where the creakings can't pathfind. And indeed we can. They spawn on scaffolding just fine. They will spin a bit, but in the end they can't pathfind and the water will push them faster into the sitting chamber. So this helps a bit with initializing the farm a bit faster if it gets nighttime. The second comment seemed rather innocent, but took a lot more effort to implement. So the old version just used the underside to generate the resins, and the question was, can we use the upper part as well? So can we have air here and generate resins here as well? This one took a bit of time to implement. I'll explain the solution in a moment. This comment also led to improvement number 3. In this version you don't need to time your auto clicker anymore, so you don't have to pay attention when you start it. Just use any attack interval of 1 second or maybe a bit faster and the farm will run perfectly. This makes the farm easier to use, and also you won't have any more items glitching out here on the side if you have the wrong interval or if you encounter some server lag. And the last improvement comes from courtesy of Doc M77, who built a very nice resin farm of his own using a design idea by Gnembon. It's a very cool design, although I do think my farm is still a bit faster, at least in this version. But check it out if you haven't seen it. And one clever thing is that he hits a minecart instead of hitting the creakings directly, so the sword doesn't take any damage. And I was blissfully unaware of that fact. I always thought swords take damage when hitting minecarts and armor stands, but there you go. You always learn new things. So in this version we'll use a sweeping edge sword and a minecart to hit the creakings. You can also use an armor stand, but with an armor stand, if you look at an armor stand, you can't eat at the same time. So the version with the minecart may be better for those of you who don't have a regeneration beacon, as I added in this version. Because since we are building a deluxe version of this farm here, we might as well add a beacon. So we can AFK indefinitely and don't use any food. Okay, let's have a look at the farm in detail. A tiny reminder in case you haven't seen my previous video. Creakings spawn in an area that can be 16 blocks away in X and Z direction and 8 blocks away in Y direction. Of course they stand still if they look at the player in survival mode, and if we hit them, we will generate these resin clumps at the pale oak logs next to the heart. And we can hit them multiple times and get multiple resin clumps. However, there's a 5-second cooldown. So if you hit them continuously like that, nothing will happen. Only if you hit them 5 seconds apart, you will get more resin clumps. And of course, creakings disappear during the daytime. This farm works very much like the old one. We have a total of 180 creaking hearts in here, with pale oak logs on top and bottom. Of course, you only need one heart to start the farm. We'll get to that in a moment. You can craft the remaining hearts later from resin blocks and pale oak logs. Here, there's only one place where the creakings can spawn, which is this platform. So they will spawn here. Each heart will spawn exactly one creaking. They will stay alive. They will all be flushed into this hitting chamber here. We can't say killing chamber because they don't take any damage. So once we have all 180 creakings in here, we have no more any spawns. And the player hits the creakings in a 5-second interval and therefore generates resins. Then we shift the logs on top and bottom to break the resins. And at the bottom, the resins just fall into the water stream. At the top, we collect the resins for a while. And once in a while, we create a water stream that flushes down the resins from the top platform also into the same water stream. So this is new in this version of the farm. The old farm would generate the resins just on the underside. Now we also have the second layer, and we also generate some resins on the outside here. And overall, this doubles the rates. So how do we control the water flushes here? So these are trapdoors that are waterlocked. And we open these trapdoors. So in the back, we have a 5-second clock that controls the whole thing, because we shift the blocks every 5 seconds. And we use 4 copper bulbs to divide this interval 4 times. So this copper bulb is activated once every 10 seconds, this once every 20 seconds, and so on, this once every 80 seconds. And if this copper bulb goes on, we generate a pulse here, which will open the trapdoors for a moment. Like so. And now the resins are flushed down. We let quite a few resins accumulate here. This creates some lag. But of course, each flushing of the resins will block the resin generation for one spawning cycle, because we need a bit of time to flush all of them down. So basically the water has to be on for something like 5 seconds. So you could reduce the lag a bit by removing 1 or 2 of these copper bulbs. You could just replace them with any solid block. Then you will flush the water more often, you will have less lag, but you will also have somewhat lower rates. So let's have a closer look at the timings and the trapdoor. So the player hits fast enough that it will hit the minecart if the trapdoor is open. The trapdoor is open for just over 1 second, so any timing of 20 game ticks or faster will work. So let's check the flushing timing. We have generated the resins, and we will flush if the copper bulbs are exactly in this state, they are all off. So let's make the game real slow, enable the clock, and observe. Trapdoor is closed. Pistons move, break the resins, and pretty much at the same time release the water. So now the water will flush all of the resins and the trapdoor is still closed. And only after the water reaches the edge, the trapdoor opens. And now everything is covered with water, so we can't get any resins on top. So these resins will be flushed down, except for the ones in the middle that are caught in a stationary water source. Nothing we can do about that. And then we close our doors again. Now we haven't generated any resins in this cycle because we needed a bit of time to flush down the resins, about 5 seconds. But in the next cycle, this one works again as usual. The timing of the trapdoor is just right that the farm works in optimal mode. And for that, we take an output from these pistons here and we delay the signal by a total of 1.6 seconds. And this overall works very nicely. And of course, the last improvement is this new hitting chamber. And this is just a minecart. So if you hit a minecart, you will promote the sweeping attack to all of the mobs, even though you break the minecarts. And for this, I think you need a sweeping edge sword this time. And if the minecart is broken, it goes into this hopper, so make sure that your inventory is full so that you can't pick up the minecart on accident. Minecart goes into this dropper, is read by this comparator, activates this observer clock. This fires twice. This will bring the minecart up here and then redispense it. And this will work, of course, on any server, and it will never break, unlike armor stands, who tend to break. Of course, we needed to beef up the storage. I mean, after all, we have 250,000 resin clumps coming in at night in thunderstorms. So this time we have 18 crafters, 9 on each side. Each crafter is supplied with a double speed hopper, is as usual powered by this observer clock that is activated if items come in. And each side goes into its own shulker box loader this time, because we previously had a 3 times shulker box loader that wasn't fast enough for the night. The items would back up, so if you have a long thunderstorm, you would lose items. So now we have 2 double speed shulker box loaders, and these shulker boxes go into this output chest here. Very simple, very compact setup, as you can see. And here we cycle the items because an hopper can pick up only 1 stack at a time. And once we flush these items down, we get a ton of items. So it's not clear if the hoppers can pick up all of these items. So if the hoppers are in cooldown, because they have picked up a stack, the items will just go around and cycle a second time and be picked up this time. Okay, let's briefly talk about how to start up this farm. And I've seen several temporary designs for resin farms, and I don't think this is necessary in any way. So what you need is, of course, you need a knight. You need a valid creaking heart. You are in survival. And very soon a creaking will spawn. And then you just hit it every 5 seconds. And you just harvest the resin clumps. So this time we get 2. And again, we have a cooldown, so there's no point in hitting it all the time. But of course, you can just enable your auto clicker if you like. You also don't need a sword, you can hit it with the open hand. And then just collect these resins. It's also pretty safe, even if the creaking does damage. And you see we are getting quite a few resins here. So you'll have to repeat this for maybe a minute. And then you'll probably have a stack of resins or so. And that's really all you need. But you also see that the resins generate only at the adjacent blocks. So we don't get any resins here, unfortunately. So they are not promoted that far. Okay, let's continue this until we have a stack, maybe. And now with 1 step of resin clumps, you can generate a couple of blocks. So these are 7 blocks. And now you can craft them with pale oak logs into hearts. So now we have 7 hearts here, an 8th here. So if we silk touch this. And with that we can start up the farm. Now let's show you how. So let's say you have the farm. Farm must be turned off, of course. But you don't have the hearts yet. So you can put in the logs or not, doesn't really matter. But if you put in the logs, you want to keep 1 row open, so like so. Because we want the resins to generate on the side and we want them to fall into the water stream down. So what you do is you just place the hearts that you have in here. They have to glow so that they are lit up. And then just fill the rest with any blocks. Doesn't have to be pale oak, but maybe you just have them. And then you run the farm for maybe 1 night. So let's turn the farm on. So stand here in survival, fill your inventory, enable the auto clicker at an interval of 1 second. And you will see that resins generate here. So they might generate on either side or on top or at the bottom. Doesn't matter, so we break them. Because we have left 1 row open, they will go into the water stream and just keep running this for about one night. I did it like that. I think I had 9 creaking hearts in there, and after one night I had enough resins to craft all of the other remaining 171. So no problem there, no need to build any temporary farm. And that's the farm. So here are the results from a few hours AFK time, I don't know, maybe 6 or 7 hours. Almost a double chest filled with shulkers of resin blocks. I hope you liked the video. Another big thank you for your comments and see you soon. Thanks for watching. Leave a like if you want to see more content like this. Please subscribe so that you don't miss any of my videos. And see you next time. Bye bye.